What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a new release movie from a new Cronenberg, and it's really funny. When I saw the announcement for this movie last year, I was really excited about it because I have become a huge fan of Brandon Cronenberg over the past couple of years, and that family just comes up with some of the most creative and unique ideas for movies. And no matter how I feel about the film in the end, even if it's not a perfect movie, between David and Brandon, I always feel like I enjoy my experience watching their movies. It always makes me think. There's always a lot of thought put into the movies. And so having another child of David Cronenberg making a film was really exciting to me. And I read the plot description of the movie and it sounded very interesting. And it recently became available on VOD. And I believe it's coming to Shudder in the next couple of months. And so I was really excited to check it out. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Humane. Humane is directed by Caitlin Cronenberg. In the wake of an environmental collapse that has forced humanity to shed 20% of its population, a family dinner erupts into chaos when a father's plan to enlist in the government's new euthanasia program goes horribly awry. So I was really excited to check this movie out and to see what Caitlin Cronenberg had to offer, and unfortunately, this movie isn't very good. And it's not the worst thing in the world. There are definitely moments that are stronger than others, and I think the concept as a whole is really fantastic, but it feels very cheaply made. It kind of feels like a Black Mirror episode that was stretched way too thin, and some of the performances are not very good, and I'll discuss that more as I break the whole movie down. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Charles York, played by Peter Gallagher. He is a popular news reporter, and we are at this point in the future where resources have become so scarce for humanity that the government has implemented this new program where you can volunteer to kill yourself. Each part of the world has to contribute a specific amount of population decrease. And where this movie is set, they are supposed to shed 20% of their population. And he decides, he lost his original wife to a tragic accident. He's married to another woman. All his kids have grown up and they're doing different things. He decides that he wants to give himself up to this euthanasia program. So he invites all of his different kids to come to the house. Jared, played by Jay Baruchel, who works for this company that's involved with politicians. You can see really early on he's kind of a seedy individual. Rachel, played by Emily Hampshire, who is involved in some kind of scandal that she has a young daughter who's feeling the effects of her mother being involved in this scandal. And then Ashley and Noah, who are the youngest of the siblings, who we see them meet outside, and Noah has been dealing with some issues with drug abuse and has been struggling in his life. And the two of them kind of have a bonding moment before they go over to the father's house because he has invited them all over to dinner to give them this news. And the entirety of the film is once the news is given and the company shows up to perform this euthanasia on Charles and his wife, something happens and causes tension in the family. And it's all about the tension and the relationship dynamics between this very wealthy family. So as I said, I was not a huge fan of this movie. I will say, for starters, for some positives, I did really like the premise of the movie. I think it's incredibly fascinating to think about the world getting to a point where resources are so scarce that they would come up with something like this. And I truly could see the government doing something like this, honestly. It would not be surprising to me whatsoever. And it got my mind rolling, and I thought that it was a really interesting premise, and there's a lot of great tension-filled moments between characters when it comes to discussions about willingly volunteering yourself for this, and kind of putting a price tag on human life and whose life is more valuable in that moment, what people should volunteer themselves, and then coming out of the mouths of these very wealthy, privileged people made for a very interesting conversation. And Caitlin is obviously bringing up a lot of different things in this movie, especially about wealth disparity, about how in these types of situations, the wealthy would do whatever they could to kind of avoid being involved in these situations. There's even elements of race played in there because Charles' new wife is Asian, and she talks about a lot of the hate and the things that she has experienced in her life because whatever has occurred on the planet started out of Asia in that area, and so there's a lot of racial discrimination because of that, which clearly parallels to a lot of the ignorant racism that sparked from COVID. And I think that there's some interesting ideas here, and Caitlin starts to get under the surface a little bit and describe some of this to the audience. But unfortunately, the overall impact of the film is relatively lackluster for a multitude of reasons. For starters, the production on this is relatively cheap. It felt like a Netflix TV show or something that had like a lower budget than a feature-length film, and you could feel it just in the cinematography and in the production design, and even in some of the practical effects moments where violence started to play a part in the film. It just felt kind of cheap, which is really interesting thinking about who David Cronenberg is and about who Brandon Cronenberg is and the money that they've been able to pull for movies. You'd think that she would have had an easier time to get some more money to make the project she wanted to make. But I think the production budget on this and the scale being so small really impacted it. And that's not to say that I think a movie structured like this couldn't be accomplished well in a very small scale environment. But I think a lot of those issues with it being so small scale is some of the performances in this are just really bad. I really like Jay Baruchel and Emily Hampshire, but I was not a big fan of either one of their performances in this. They just kind of felt like they were being themselves, and some of the dialogue delivery was just really campy and didn't accompany the tone very well. I feel like the strongest actor in this for me was Sebastian Chacon, who played Noah, the sibling who was dealing with drug abuse issues. I felt like his character really was the most expressive when it came to some of the deeper emotional moments. Enrico Colantoni, who plays Bob, one of the characters that comes in, who adds a lot of comedic levity to the film, does a really fantastic job, but everyone else in the movie was relatively lackluster. There's also just like an immense amount of expositional dialogue in this film where like every character tells you exactly what's going on in their mind to the point where it becomes very irritating very quickly. It's like we don't need this amount of information. We don't need to know each and every single thing that is on your mind. Like, leave some of it up to interpretation. You can use visuals to convey your point rather than just like spewing out this dialogue that just became very tiresome after a while. And there's some shock value elements thrown in here or there to try to keep you on the edge of your seat as a viewer, but I don't think any of them work really well. And by the end of the movie, I just left feeling kind of unsatisfied, even in the way that it wrapped up. I feel like with a movie that was trying to say so much about the political landscape and wealth disparity, and like I said, even throwing things about race in, it didn't really feel like it said much of anything at all by the end of the film. And there's so many of these like eat the rich movies that have come out over the past like 5 years that I think are much better than this. Even like The Menu, which came out relatively recently, was a much more impactful statement on, you know, the wealthy and the way the wealthy treat other people. And I expected a lot more from this movie, and it just left a sour taste in my mouth. And I don't think that it's the worst thing in the world. If you're interested in it, it's probably worth a watch, but it definitely let me down. So have you seen Humane? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was incredibly disappointing. It had a lot of potential and a really cool premise, but it ultimately left me unsatisfied. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.